Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back, and let's chat about what's going on up in the stars, in the sky, in the heavens today. I hope everybody's doing well, and I hope everybody's having a good day so far, no matter where you are. Hopefully you've woken up and realized that there's something changed in the atmosphere, perhaps. And that is the fact that the moon overnight moved out of the sign of Libra and into the sign of Scorpio. So things have taken on a little bit deeper and more transformational sort of energy for the next day or two, couple of days, actually. I'm going to take a quick check over in Facebook here because I forgot to turn it on actually, and I want to be able to see everybody's comments. Actually, somehow it was on. Maybe the system turned it on for me. Magic is happening. And anyway, I had a great day yesterday. I was out and about in the world, and it was crazy, right? It was a crazy day out there, people shopping, stripping the stores bare of things like toilet paper and Kleenex, hand sanitizer, cleaning products. Oh, Lord, it's just crazy. But at least there was food, and that was what I was after, was the staples and the things that I needed to stock up on. So it was good to be out there. I'm sorry that people are going a little bit nuts, but that's how it happens sometimes, right? Good morning, Mimi, and good morning, Marissa. And I want to read you all something this morning. I'm actually going to post the link after the show. I was going to do that earlier and I just didn't have time. But I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about Bruce Lipton and some of the scientific works. He wrote the book, The Biology of Belief, and he's done a lot of work with recognizing sort of the metaphysical that joins with the physical. He and Greg Braden have worked together, and a friend this morning sent me an article that he had written, and it says, "Dear friends of, or dear family of love and seekers everywhere, coronavirus, do not fear the boogeyman. The world is currently gripped in fear of the scary coronavirus. Let's first get one fact clear. If you have ever had a cold or flu in your life, odds are that it was the result of a corona infection. Yes, coronaviruses cause colds. But we are being programmed with the belief that this particular cold virus is deadly. This fear has shut down concerts, conferences, and major public events all over the world. The fear has led to quarantines and closing down of international travel. It has even led to a major scarcity of toilet paper in Australia. I know you live here, Bruce. You have got to have gone to a Costco and seen there is no TP. Where emptied the shelves of this commodity in anticipation that they will be walled up in their homes with this infection. First, how deadly is this version of the virus? Yes, there have been corona-related deaths reported, with statistics suggesting that approximately 2% of the infected population dies. Wow. That number is almost 1% more deaths than are attributed to any conventional flu the world experiences. What is misleading is the fear that everyone who carries this virus may die from their cold. This is simply untrue. The health of almost all the victims of this coronavirus was already compromised before they were infected. And indeed, we've seen that here in Washington. Almost a good percentage of the population that has perished from the virus were actually health compromised or elderly, 70s, 80s, and 90-year-olds dying from this. And he goes on to list, some of the state deaths here in Washington, since we were ground zero for this, apparently. And a male in his 70s, a female in her 70s, a woman in her 80s, and a couple of other people, but they were all immune compromised. So rather than me reading the rest of this article, this is a man who has written about the biology of belief. And he says, as presented in the biology of belief, I'm going to read you a little more. Stress is responsible for up to 90% of illness, including heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. I talk to people about this all the time with the ego center in their human design charts being either open, which means you're taking in all of the stress from around you, or often also an open root center. We talked about the root center yesterday. So the conclusion, as he gets down to it here, is that the fear of the coronavirus is more deadly than the virus itself. So your belief in it can create a situation that supports what the outer world's fear is showing you. So I'm actually going to share that again later after the broadcast today. Do not close it, Janet, because if you do, you'll lose it. There we go. Put it down. So there you have it. You know, some of the profound words from a scientist who has done a lot of study about the psychology of belief. And if you believe that this is a, I have a cat over my shoulder over here, cleaning herself. Good one, Sadie. So the biology of belief, right? What do we believe? Well, if we believe we're healthy and if we believe that this virus can take us out, then likely you're going to create a situation where that happens for you. And that's not to minimize what other people have experienced with it, because yes, indeed, you know, if people are really ill already, then indeed this can come in and just create more havoc where there was already, you know, shutdowns in process in their body. So what you think is important, right? What you think, what you focus on is extremely important. So let's focus now on what is going on in the sky today, all right? Today, the moon, while we slept, at least here in the US, while we slept, the moon slipped into the sign of Scorpio, changing up the energy as we wake up this morning. For those of you in Europe, that would have happened a little bit later, and you would have been into your day when the moon shifted over. So you probably were at work and felt, something's different. And indeed, that would be because the Scorpio moon is a little more intense than what the Libra moon was, even though yesterday there were a lot of hookups that the moon was making with planets like Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto. I should have said that in a different order. Jupiter, Chariklo, Pluto, and Saturn. So we have some different energies today. And indeed, the moon, as it moves into Scorpio, starts to influence by opposition the planets that are in early Taurus, i.e. Uranus and then Venus. And I took a look this morning. It was so funny because Uranus and Venus are in Taurus, the sign that is exactly opposite of Scorpio. And what was the headline this morning as I checked in on the news before I came on air? That the US markets, or the markets in general, have gone into bull territory. Bull territory, Taurus. Love it when art and life imitate one another. Or when astrology and life show each other, imitate one another. It's just breathtaking almost sometimes. So what does the energy of the opposition to Uranus and Venus bring to us then today? One, it decreases our ability of self-control. And this is why, you know, coming in here and listening to a show like this, or, you know, doing your due diligence, you know, finding ways to get into meditation or yoga or anything, Qigong, any of your Tai Chi, even any of those mindfulness kinds of exercises are so important because they help us stay out of that field of this lacking of self-control, this lacking of consistency, the scattered feeling, the fear feeling. So today, those are things that can really help us as the moon begins to oppose those two planets. Now, the Scorpio moon always brings us change and transformation on some level. It doesn't have to be something obvious in your physical world. It could be a shift that goes on in your emotional self. It can be a shift in the form of forgiveness. It can be a transformation or a transmutation of toxic emotions, right? Where we've been holding fear or anger or upset. We have this opportunity today to release that, to forgive ourselves, to forgive others, to forgive the outer world, forgive our creation or our impacting that field of the outer world with our own fear, and release, right? So we have big energies today around releasing toxic emotions and forgiveness. Now, Scorpio is also a sign that brings us about to energy of power or power struggles often. So we can be struggling both in our inner world with ourselves, and or we may be struggling with people in our outer world, or people may try to draw us into these power struggles. We don't have to go there, right? And if you find yourself in an internal power struggle, let that go, right? You don't have to struggle with yourself. I mean, that one doesn't help anything. But our intuition at this point in time with the moon in Scorpio is also heightened. So we can intuit hidden messages or hidden meanings behind things. We may see hidden agendas or secrets being exposed. And we may also connect more fully with our own personal ambitions or our deeper truths. So today's a day, or anytime that the moon is in Scorpio, we have that opportunity to get into that deeper area and to, raise ourselves up, empower ourselves, right? And help empower others who are feeling maybe a lack of power, or maybe they're stuck in a struggle. Scorpio also brings up merging energy. The 8th house is the house that is ruled by Scorpio in your astrology chart. And that 8th house is a place of sex, death, rebirth, and the finances that we hold with other people, where we've merged our finances, like a business partnership perhaps, or where we are earning money from our investments or annuities or tax credits, that kind of thing. Isn't it interesting that we hear a lot about that right now going on with possibly Congress with $8 billion of some kind of relief, financial relief, the stock market tanking, and all of these kinds of things right now are, coming to this crescendo with the moon in Scorpio. So we have sex, we have psychic entanglement, and we also have finances with investments, etc., being affected by the moon in Scorpio. And I think even more profound because in the early hours of this, the moon coming into an opposition with Uranus, which has already been, monkeying, maybe behind the scenes a bit with our financial system. And there've been signals all along that something wasn't quite right. But, when you're running away with what's the opposite of the bull market? I can't remember. Bear market, bull market. Anyway, at this point in time, though, we may be seeing the effects of some of that runaway stuff that's been going on in the financial markets, and all brought about by a little teeny weeny virus that we can't even see except under a microscope. It's amazing how things happen, isn't it? During the transit of the moon in Scorpio, we're also tasked with holding our own emotions, holding on to our own power. And when I say holding on to our emotions, we have emotional strength that comes with the moon in Scorpio. And I think there's a lot of times when we look at people who have powerful Scorpio energy in their chart where we might feel, and some of them may be, but we might feel like they're holding back their emotions. And it's likely because they feel things so deeply. We feel things very deeply when the moon is moving through Scorpio. It's almost like we're just containers for some very powerful emotional energy. Whether you have an open emotional center, maybe worse for you if you have an open emotional center, or if you have a defined emotional center, the emotions are very strong during a moon in Scorpio transit. Some people take that, bottle it up, and hold on to it, and they appear to be emotionless. Other people, on the other hand, are very emotional, and they're wearing their hearts out on their sleeve, and they're just broadcasting this emotion. So whichever way you are, just remember that your emotional intelligence is your own. So make sure that you're managing your own emotions, right? I don't want you to be unemotional because that's not any good either. But also recognize when your emotions are getting ready to overpower you and spill out of you and onto someone else. Maybe go take a walk, or, do some movement or something. Watch out today for revenge, for resentments, for rage, for paranoia. It was interesting. Last night, I heard about a road rage incident, and I was like, wow, that person was way out of balance. That was Libra kinds of road rage. But today, rage might take a very emotional outburst kind of feeling. Okay, Moon and Scorpio. Questions? Londa, good morning. Facebook took down a Deepak video on coronavirus. Well, those little pukes. Of course, they don't want us to know the truth. They would much rather us be in the fear field, but we know better, right? We know better. And even though, like my aha yesterday on air, when I realized, oh shit, I have an open spleen, I'm taking in this fear energy, and then I'm amplifying it and broadcasting it. No wonder I was feeling more and more emotional, more and more fearful about going out in the world. And last night I realized, or yesterday when I was on air, and I realized I have that open spleen. 50% of the population out there has an open spleen. They're taking in all of that broadcasted fear and amplifying it. So as soon as you recognize that that's happening, you have the opportunity to shut it down, to release it, to let it go, to remember that you're in charge of your own body. You're in charge of how you react to all of that information out there. Jacqueline, OMG, how to help someone that is on the mission of revenge? Well, I'm not sure, right? That's first of all, in order to help somebody, you have to have their permission. That's always a tricky, slippery slope, right? Because sometimes that person has just got to learn their lesson of revenge, and what they're doing is going to come back to them, especially on a day like today in the Pleiadian-Earth energy. We are in the karmic mirror day, the self-regulating day. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But, that is going to have reverberation back at them. But your part, Jacqueline, unless they've asked you for help in how to get past revenge, there's really not much you can do except hold space for them to find forgiveness and to allow forgiveness in. And you can do that. But I don't know that you can actually intercede and, try to stop them from that. That's, like I said, a slippery slope. Londa, you might be able to speak more to that because I know you've been talking about that lately too. And Jacqueline says, my spleen is defined. Maybe that's why I'm calm. Could be because you have a set way of dealing with fear or with time or with health. So maybe that's something I didn't quite explain yesterday either. So let's take that for a moment and look at it. When you have a defined center of any kind, whether it's the spleen, the head, the whatever, you have a fixed and consistent way of dealing with the energy through that center. So if we're dealing with the spleen, and it's the center for time, intuition, health, and fear, right? Those gates all double as sort of the fear energies on the planet. Then you are consistent, however it is that you've learned to deal with fear, or however you've learned to deal with health, or however you've learned to deal with time and intuition, is how you're always going to be consistently dealing with it. Those of us who have an open center, any center, but we'll take the spleen since we're talking about that one, ours is very inconsistent. And that means your expression of energy through that open center is largely dependent upon your conditioning, the people that you are around or that you surround yourself with, the environment that you're in, and the transiting of planets and how they might be lighting up that center. So open centers are inconsistent expression, while defined centers are where you have consistent expression. Fixed and consistent, and authentic is another word we could use. It's the true you. In the open centers, it's not quite the true you because you're picking it up from outside of you or from the conditioning field that you grew up in or that you surround yourself with every day. So it's not that one is good and one isn't. It's just different. It's just different in how it expresses. Good morning, Colleen. She says, luckily with this open spleen, I only deal with dogs. Oh, and that brings me to another point. Thank you for saying that. Animals are another great way for us to dispel fear, because animals have a very instinctual and intuitive way of behaving, and they act as sort of a ground, right? They can be very grounding. They remind us of love, right? They remind us to be in the love energy and not in the fear energy, right? Animals of all kinds, but particularly dogs and our domestic animals, our cats and horses and the animals that we really kind of live with. They are their human their design, they're not humans, they don't have a human design, but they have a design as well, is linked up differently than ours, and so they can have a calming effect. Trees and plants also have a design, and they can also calm and ground us. So go hug a tree. That's why getting out into nature or getting out by the water can have such a profound effect upon us, because their designs are different. And they hook us up in a different way. They hook us up into peace and serenity and to love energies. So when your world is crazed, or when you're feeling tipsy or, off balance, get out into nature or go hug your animal. Um, now I know why it is Sadie always wants to crawl on my lap at the end of the day, because that's where I've had all of that, craziness of the day. She's going to help me dispel all that. She's going to sit on me and make me sit still so that I can let it go. Love it. Good morning, Elisa. It's great to see you. Jacqueline says pets are easier to deal with. Yes, indeed they are. So anyway, I hope that helps everybody. If you have some questions about your human design, as we saw yesterday, it's very easy for me to get up on air with your chart and to look at it. And I really enjoyed doing that yesterday. So I would like to do that more. If anybody has specific questions about their spleen or anything that's going on in their lives, we could take a look at a chart. Great. Now, today also is the last day of the Earth's energy at the gate 47. And I wanted to go to our Rosie Aronson guidebook, the Wisdom Keeper's Inner Guidebook, and talk about what is going on at the gate 47. That is where the Earth is sitting. And this morning I thought I can't go on air without looking up the word transfiguration, because it's one of those words, it sticks in my craw for some reason. Not in a bad way. It's just I don't quite have this understanding of it yet. So I looked it up. I had Siri actually look it up. Sorry, Siri, don't talk to me. I looked it up, and here was the definition I found for transfiguration, which, by the way, is the siddhi of the gate 47, the highest expression. The middle expression or the gift is transmutation. The lowest expression is oppression. And I think some of us have been feeling that oppression of, well, think about it, right? Taking away our concerts or our enjoyment of travel, or of going, now the NBA suspended games and things like that, being quarantined. The whole word about quarantine is about oppression, right? Being stuck somewhere. But anyway, here's transfiguration: a complete change of form or appearance into a more beautiful or spiritual state. A complete change of form or appearance into a more beautiful or spiritual state. I love it. It reminds me of being a shaman or a shapeshifter, crow energy, as the shaman can shapeshift, right? And there's something magical afoot when we can do that. So I thought today what I would do is read us the 47, because tomorrow, of course, the gates shift again and it won't be pertinent to us. Here is the card of transmutation. You can take a look. This is a very busy face. I see some of the sacred phoenix maybe in her cheeks. What is that in her other cheek? I can't quite tell. Oh, there more of the sacred phoenix. Bring it in. Look at those eyes. Everything is interesting here in this face. There's something wistful in there as well. Not quite sad, but not quite maybe a wise face. I'm not sure. Let's see what this card is all about. So it says, the only way to transcend suffering is to move more deeply into it, embracing every feeling and event that comes to you. Here is the wisdom story. I had a recurring nightmare as a child. It always ended with a bearded man hovering over me with a giant blade as I guarded something behind my back. I always woke up screaming just before the blade touched my chest. My father was a weak and quiet man. He didn't speak of his oppressive family past or believe in much of anything. My mother was a woman who religiously embraced the dogma of the church. Convinced a negative entity was attached to her daughter, she dragged me to church. For years, I prayed for forgiveness and to be rid of the evil, but the nightmare only intensified. By the time I was a young woman, I avoided sleep at all costs. One night, I was so overcome with hopelessness that I broke down in front of my father, finally sharing the dream with him. He became strangely curious, as if he needed to know more. His surprising response awakened a curiosity and courage in me. That night, I willingly went to sleep. Though I still awoke before the knife fell, I was able to retrieve more information. The next night, the same happened, then the next. It got to a point where I could enter the dream at will, like a sleuth, always leaving seconds before my murder. My father hungered for each new detail that came through. It was as if the two of us were assembling pieces from an ancient puzzle. One night, I detected faint lettering on the bearded man's belt. I drew the 3 letters for my father. He ran to his room and rushed back with an old book full of Nordic symbols given to him by the grandfather he'd never mentioned. Immediately, we saw the meaning of the three symbols: journey, gift, and joy. I'd never seen my father's eyes glow like that. I couldn't wait to go to sleep that night. This time, I let the dagger plunge into my heart. There was no blood, no pain, just radiant light filling my chest. Turning to face what I'd been protecting all those years, I saw a treasure box, overflowing with jewels. The bearded man reappeared, this time beaming with kindness. Instead of a sword, he held a picture of my father as a child in his hand. He said, "Tell your father I ask for his forgiveness. Tell him I love him." My father and I were never the same after that. Our ancestral relations strengthened, healed, and transformed us. Today, there is nothing I am not willing to see or feel. I uncover treasure after treasure. My gift to you: I am here to ask you to move towards that which terrifies you. Ooh. You may think you have a fixed identity, but you don't. You are forever changing. You are designed to bump up against limitations and then to dissolve into something else. Transmutation is the key to your evolution. I come when it's time to hold nothing back, to embrace everything, and to live dangerously. Release all definitions of who you are or what you're capable of. Get comfortable with fear. Willingly take the lid off of Pandora's box. If you truly want to transcend your suffering, more willingly take the lid off of Pandora's box. If you truly want to transcend your suffering, move deeply into it. Surrender. You can make a quantum leap at any moment and your true purpose will be revealed. Wonderful. Here are some of the questions for contemplation, which, yes, I will post for everybody. Have you given up on your life? Do you sometimes feel like no matter what you do, your life won't get better? What are the fears you refuse to face or to deal with? Do you feel best when you're mentally certain about something? Do you ever feel oppressed by your own mind? Is it hard to relate to people who think differently than you? Think of something that truly scares you. Move towards it with a symbolic or creative act. Reflect on a time in your life you experienced a transmutation. Great stuff there. Great stuff. So I will post that up later. Heading back to Facebook right now to see if people have questions, comments. Marissa says, so I should stop self-sabotaging. That's what I got from that card. I think so. Linda, I did get that. I haven't printed those sheets off yet, though, but thank you very much. Alisa, you can use my chart because I would love to know if I have an open spleen. Mimi, and I'll do that in a minute, Alisa. Mimi, many who are in balance will handle this energy well enough. Hearing the rage possibility is connected with being lied to by our officials. Understandable for those who chose to rely on our protectors being slow to respond, to lie and share little of the truth. You know, Mimi, you bring up a good point, because I remember very clearly at the end of 2019 when I was doing the Astrology for 2020 webinar, that one of the things I said, and that is, you know, showing up time and again, is about our being empowered individually to creating more reliance on community or family or oneself. That, you know, we remember it's all about interdependence. That's a big chironic theme for the entire year. On one end, we have codependence, and on the other hand, we have total independence. But in truth, we're really interdependent. And how do we empower ourselves? Well, we do that by not relying on a government or on an institution to provide for us. We need to be self-sufficient. We need to be able to take care of ourselves and our families and our communities. And your community can extend out even to the state that you live in, perhaps, or even our nation. But you have to remember that when we're depending upon an institution that works through a bureaucracy, as Mimi is saying here, things they go slow, right? They're not always able to react in the moment, but you as an individual can, right? You can take the bull by the horns, so to speak, right here in the moment and do things that are impossible for a government to be able to do. So we have power. We have power, and the more that we are empowered, the more we empower our families and then our communities, and it goes outward. And that's what I meant when late in the year, when we were talking about grassroots and people power. And as Saturn later this month makes its move into Aquarius, we really begin to see that people power in play. And that's why, again, let's see, today's what, the 12th. So in about a week or two is when I asked you to journal from about the 23rd of March. I'm going to say more like, let's say from the spring equinox. So the 19th of March, at least here in the US, and it'll be the fall equinox for those of you down under. Start journaling from about the 23rd, or from spring equinox to about April 23rd, and watch what's going on. Right? There's going to be some really cool things that you're going to hear about. It's going to be more power to the people. And that's going to be a growing restraint. It might be muted a bit as we move through, from July to December. But after December, because then not only is Saturn in Aquarius, so is Jupiter. And of course, it's just another couple of years when Pluto joins Saturn in Aquarius. Actually, I'm not sure if it joins Saturn in Aquarius, but it will be in Aquarius itself and start a long-term transit of people power. So there we go. And yes, stop self-sabotaging, Marissa. That was the long answer for that one. Tom, good morning. Great to see you. I hope everything's all right in your world. Good morning, Judy Wheeler. And now I am going to go to, do I want to do that? Yeah, I have time. I'm going to go open up my program for, can I do this? Yes, I can. My human design program, so I can get Elisa's chart up and we can take a look at hers. And I should have opened this earlier this morning. I did not. My apologies for the time lag here. Garcia. Elisa, have I done a chart for you? Okay, hold on. Maybe I'm in the wrong. No, I'm in the right file, but maybe you got over here under examples. Elisa, I may have done yours earlier before my program died. Remember when my computer died over the summer, I lost all that information. So if you would kindly enter your birth information in for me, or maybe text it to me, because otherwise I don't have your, or did you go by a different last name? Maybe I have it under a different last name, so it's not under Garcia. Angela says, when it comes to the rage, frustration, power struggle that you were talking about and choosing to step out of it, I'm wondering how to shift the power to the people and away from fear without it being a struggle or fight. That's a great question, Angela. And it really does come down to us as individuals and the power that we as individuals have to shift what's going on within us. And then, as you see so eloquently in a human design chart, how our energies commingle, then, if you clear your field of fear, revenge, rage, and all of that, then you're allowing others around you to clear that. And then as they clear that, then they, get that further out. And, people who are out there already doing healing work, you can address this with your clients. You can say, I don't be afraid to address their fear, their rage, or their whatever it is that's going on in their bodies. Because if they're on your table or they've come to you for guidance, then that's an invitation, right? Because now they're showing up and asking you basically for your help. So same last name. Okay, honey, I'm going to write this down real quick. 7. I need to know time and place of birth as well, if you have that. And then I'll get your chart up real quickly. And Jacqueline, thank you. But did we look at yours yesterday? No, we looked at Wheeler's yesterday. So Jacqueline, I may look at yours as well. So I'm going to just make myself a note. My mind gets so off into many directions. So shifting power to the people is going to come when the people take back their power. And you can do that in every moment of every day. You have children, sweetie. You can be teaching your children how to do this, right? How to be in power of their emotions, how to be able to choose what they are going to be, how they respond to something instead of reacting. And, it's going to take time. It's going to be a process as we learn that. And in LA, my old stomping grounds. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. And if you have more that you want to ask about that, let me know. Right now, I'm going to quickly enter in some information here so that we can pull up Elisa's chart. And then Jacqueline, I believe I have yours. So I should have yours too. I just don't know. I swear I have little gremlins sometimes in my system. And 630 is 18. And Los Angeles. Okay. A manifester, Elisa. Oh, this is good. We haven't looked at a manifester chart. So let me go back to Zoom real quickly and I'll share my chart. Return to meeting and share Elisa's chart. So there you go. Hopefully you are all looking at Elisa's chart right now. And this is a chart of a manifester. And in human design, there are 5 types, as you guys probably have already heard me talk about. There are the manifestors, there are manifesting generators, there are generators, projectors, and reflectors, 5 types. Each type has a strategy in which it engages with the world. And each type also has every person, almost everybody has an authority that helps with decision making. So here is a chart of a manifestor, and you always know it's a manifestor when the throat is defined by a motor. And these are the motors right here: the root center, the sacral, the ego, and the emotional center are motors. And a manifestor is defined by a motor reaching the throat and no sacral definition. So it can be one of these 3 motors, but it cannot be the sacral. Haha, should have said that first. So what happens here is the root is a motor, and her root center meets up with the spleen through the 5432. And then it moves on up from the 48 to the 16 to the throat. So she is a splenic manifestor. And that means your spleen is empowered, Elisa, to be one of the things that helps you make decisions. Now, a manifestor's strategy is basic. It is to initiate and inform. A manifestor is here to start the ball rolling. They are not necessarily the ones that take it from start to finish. So if you have been in your life told that you're a flake, or if you have felt like you were a flake because you start a bunch of things, but you don't finish them, you were actually doing what you do best, which is to start things and not finish them. It doesn't mean that you will always start things and not finish, because the things that are of most importance to you, you will finish. But manifestors are the initiators, right? I always think of them as the ball, the breaking ball. If you were going to play pool, there's the white cue ball, and you've got them all racked up, and the white cue ball breaks them open, and balls go in different directions. But that's the job of the manifestor, to open up the game and get people going, and then they may stick with it if it's feeling good to them or if it's correct for them, but they don't have to. So, but consequently, people like generators and manifesting generators, who are very workhorse type people and believe that it's best to start and finish, may not see that, and they may think that you're a flake, or they may have, thinking that you just don't finish anything you start. Don't take that in, because that is what you're here to do: start things. You're the initiator. Now, the informing part of being a manifestor is that manifestors have a bit of a wild edge to them. People sense on an energetic level. This isn't because you're wild. You might be, but it's not because you're wild. But they sense that there's maybe this unpredictability about you, that maybe you'll start or you'll leave at any moment. And so they try to bring you in and corral you. And to avoid that feeling of being corralled, which is going to cause you to react negatively to that, the best way for you to engage the world when you're making a change is to inform people before you do it. And informing is not asking permission. It is basically saying to someone, hey, I am going to start working on Tuesday through Friday and take off 3 days a week. That's what, suits my energy. I'm just letting you know that that's how things are going to go. Or, by the way, I'm going to be on vacation for 10 days, and I'm just letting you know I won't be able to answer emails for a while, but whatever it is, right? You're informing. And it could be even just informing your family, hey, we're going to stop eating meat. We're going to become vegetarians. I don't know, whatever it is in your life, make sure you inform people before you make changes. Now, as far as your spleen, it is highly defined because it connects. It's what really causes you to become the manifester, because the root center defined to the spleen, then on up to the throat. That is, and the rest of the centers, other than those three, are open. And the spleen, again, the center for time, intuition, health, and also doubling as fear energies. They are the ones that might be, you're broadcasting this energy, right? This is your true, authentic energy. You might be really time conscious. You could be very health conscious. You could be very musical here as well, or very creative in this. You might have a real gift or a talent for something that might be not being expressed yet, or might be, you were born in 1986, so you're what, about 30 something or another. So maybe around your midlife crisis time, which is still a ways out, there may be some major life changes for you that really help you to tune in. The way you make decisions, by the way, is through the spleen. So whereas the discussion yesterday, or maybe that was with a reading I was doing, where people who are defined emotionally have to wait for clarity over time, you're more spontaneous. It's almost like your intuition speaks to you in the moment. So an opportunity comes up and you get yes or no, or, whatever. Yeah, that's what I want. And you take action or you don't based on your intuition. That's the appropriate way for you. So there's more spontaneity involved. So you may do that also, spontaneously leaving whatever it was you were doing. And that can be disturbing to other people, which is why informing is good. Hey, you know what? This is not for me anymore. I'm going to hand the ball off to you guys and you carry on this project. And I look forward to seeing what you're able to take care of, or what you're able to produce. So you want to be very aware of your limited amount of energy as well, because your sacral is not defined. You don't have this unending energy. You have all the energy you need to begin a project, or to do a project from start to finish if it's one that's close to your heart. But then you need to rest before you take on the next one. So your spleen, even though you have the fear of failure and or success. This is workaholic energy, by the way, in this channel, this 34 or 54 to 32. It is called the channel of transmutation, I think, or transformation, and the 3254, but it's also where workaholicism lives. And then you have the 48 to the 16, which is it's called the wavelength. But to me, this is a gate, or a channel, excuse me, that really represents mastery of something, being able to take whatever your intuitive hit is and bring it right to the throat for manifestation. And musical genius is here, business genius is here. So what are you a genius at? We all have genius somewhere, by the way. So anyway, I hope that helps you. I'm going to stop sharing. No, I'm going to bring up another chart. Let me see if I can find Jacqueline Lopez's chart. Let's see. I'm going to go to clients. Oh, darn it. I just put yours under the wrong. Whatever. I'll fix it later. Lopez. I saw Lopez. There you are. So now somebody tell me, did you see the screen change over to Jacqueline Lopez's chart? You can check it out later, Debbie. I get it. You got to go get your grandson. I love it. Jacqueline Tyler, hi. Checking in, she says, blessings to everybody. Elisa says, mind blown. I love it. So please tell me, are you seeing the new chart? Okay. I'm not hearing from you guys, but I'm going to assume. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to share again. Then I could be sure that you are seeing Jacqueline Lopez's chart. So here we have the chart, a beautiful chart of a manifesting generator. The actual archetype of the manifesting generator is when there is this right angle channel connection from the sacral at gate 34, which you can hardly see in the red here, but from gate 34 all the way up to the throat at gate 20. And then hers actually makes the curve here too to the gate 10. And Jacqueline, you really have what we would call, if I can get away with this, aura busting energy. So you have some pretty powerful energy here that breaks into other people's auras. Now, this isn't something you're doing that's negative or bad or anything like that. It's just that you're carrying a big, powerful signature in your energy field. And that tends to make other people align with you. This is pretty interesting. If you're out in the work world, maybe you're counseling or coaching, or healing even others, because this can really be something that is powerful for you to understand and to be able not to use it to your advantage necessarily, but to understand that you, just by your very presence, force a change in the atmosphere in a group or in a family or in any kind of organization. And that's something powerful for you to know. If you're in a bad mood, or if you're suffering from something, then likely the other people in the group are going to be picking that up as well. You're also tapping into what other people are expressing, especially emotions, because you're open in the emotional center here, Jacqueline. But you also have the Buddha channel. The 1020 is we call this the Buddha channel in your, there's a way to look at your human design that's called the mystic channel or the mystic circuit, the mystical circuit. And in the mystic or mystical circuit, this 2010, this from here, I hate that pops up every time, from the white or yellow diamond to the brown or white throat is called the, it would be definitely brown if it's connected to the Buddha channel. So there's a lot of great spiritual energy here. There's some esoteric energy here. You have 3 of the gates of love defined in your chart. So I would say that a lot of what you're here to do is to transmit love to people. And think about that. Every time you're out in the world, you have great enthusiasm. The one thing that I see for you, Jacqueline, that you need to be very, very careful of is sharing your opinions uninvited, because the gate 17 is hanging here. And sometimes we see the gate 17 sharing opinions unasked and people not responding well to that. And then also criticism or judging others. Not that I'm saying that you do that, but the possibility exists that you have this eye. And here's where this gate 18 comes from. It comes from this eye to what would be perfect, an eye to perfection, right? So you very quickly see where things are out of alignment, whether it's color, shape, form, voice, sound, any visual, any kind of thing can really trigger you to see where things are out of balance or out of harmony. And so your eye to perfection then can bring on a sense of like Sagittarian bluntness, where you want to perfect things. And that might mean, being a little harsh when it comes to judging or critiquing other people. This one being so far away from the throat that the only real cure here is to make sure you don't speak about your constructive criticism or about judging unless asked, right? If someone says, "Hey, Jacqueline, what do you think about this outfit I'm wearing?" Well, that opens up then for you to be able to speak to that. Without that, I would be very careful that I don't speak to that with people. Now, your defined spleen is also, is this part of a split? No, you are all connected. So all of your centers are firing, and your spleen is connected to the sacral via the channel of nurturing. Are you a teacher, or what do you do out there in the world? Because this is teaching energy, where you're teaching the values, the laws, the rules, the regulations in a very nurturing way. It's very matriarchal. It's very feminine. And that is the feminine way to share love through teaching or share love through feeding, nurturing, the people in your world. So you do have the a couple of these fear gates that are hanging that other people could complete for you. And we're spending quite a bit of time talking about the fear gates right now because is it next week or the week after, the earth begins to move through all of those gates on the spleen. So whether you have, wherever you have openness here in your spleen, they're suddenly going to get triggered by the earth, which means challenges are being drawn up for you to evolve through. So wherever that is, you're going to have different openings coming up for you. All of us will have that, by the way. Okay, so I hope that helped everybody. Let me take a look at comments. Jacqueline, yes, it happens a lot with my kids. Even with your kids, you know, that's a tricky one too, right? Because you're a mom and part of your job as a mom is to help raise your kids, right? But you're going to have to learn how to be able to do that critiquing or that judging or constructive criticism. It depends on how old your kids are too. I'm not sure how old your kids are. I didn't see your birth date there, sorry. But if your kids are younger, you want to teach them how to be able to do that with people by saying, you know, can I tell you something about, you know, the way you're dressed today? Whatever it is. It's hard to say, but you'll have to learn how to be able to do that in a very positive way and waiting for the invitation to be able to say that, and instead of blurting. That would be oh so helpful. And great, I'm so glad. And Jacqueline says, yes, that's why now that my mom is home, I am ready to take a little time to get my chart reading from you. Yay. Judy Wheeler says mystical circuit. There is a mystical circuit. Yep, a mystical circuit. So the mystical circuit is really interesting. It starts with the gate 54, which you would least expect it. It really begins with the search for enlightenment, and it ends at the Buddha channel, where we find that enlightenment is our own work, right? That it's an inside job. So we go at the gate 54, enlightenment takes us out on a worldly journey, the hero's quest, right? The hero's quest. We're out looking for our life purpose, destiny, and our mystical, magical selves. And eventually what we end with is that it was an inside job the whole time, that we weren't going to find anything outside. We had to look for it inside. And it's almost a cosmic joke, but it's really very clear when you look at it through the mystical circuit in your human design. And it's quite interesting. And it's really an intriguing opportunity to take a look at yourself. So in human design, once you have your basic reading, you have to have the basic reading first, or none of this makes any sense. You can look at through the lens of the mystical journey. You can look at it through the lens of health, career, sex and relationships, through your, what's the other one I do? Mystical journey. Oh, finances, the money. So you can look at the human design through these other lenses, but after you have your initial reading. Otherwise, like I said, it makes no sense to really go through that with you personally. You have to know yourself quite prominently first, and then we can look at some of the other things going on in the chart. Okay. Well, that is just about it for me. Did we talk? No, let's talk about the Pleiadian-Earth energy, because I don't think I finished that before I went on to the human design stuff. So today we are at 3, self-regulating. 3 is the number of creating, and it is the universal energy of the day. So no matter what life form we are, no matter what planet we might be on, or what star or asteroid, we are resonant with the energy of creating. And this is a time where, remember, 1 is the energy of initiating. It takes us and starts kind of like a new moon energy, right? And we had that just 2 days ago, where we went into 1 intuiting. Right. And so intuiting is our bigger energy. That's kind of the umbrella under which all these other energies are circulating upwards through the spiral of consciousness. So 1 intuiting, what have we, what is emerging out of us now as we get into creating energy? What possibilities are emerging? What intentions that we set perhaps with that new moon a couple weeks back, or with the 1 intuiting energy 2 days ago, are starting to become visible, right? What are you seeing in your life, right? Are you seeing the results of good thoughts, or are you seeing the results of maybe not so good thoughts? Because there's always the opportunity to self-correct, right? To self-regulate, right? That's the day today, self-regulating. This is an understanding. We're still talking about the 3 energy now, that what we think matters. What's going on up here matters, because that's what's going to show up in your outer world. I had to have a little come to Jesus meeting with myself, because what I saw in my outer world, I didn't like. And I went, well, if I don't like what I see in my outer world, whose responsibility is that? Well, it's mine, right? If you don't like what you see in your outer world, change it by changing you, right? That's the only power we really have here. Stillness, meditation, yoga, qigong are helpful to avoid that mind chatter or the stinking thinking that gate 47 can sometimes trigger within us. So engage in that today. I have a really good friend. She lives just a couple doors down from me. Her website is compassionatemeditation.com. Compassionatemeditation.com. And she does qigong, and she has lots of meditation. There's an app that you can get called Insight Timer. And there are several of those meditations in here that are free. And if you're someone that maybe needs guidance to help you, get into meditation, the Insight Timer is really, really helpful. And Amy, her name is Amy Pattee, Pattee Colvin. She has lots of meditations for sleep or for peace or for compassion. They're great. And no, I don't get kickbacks, but I love her work. So compassionatemeditation.com, or get her work on Insight Timer, or anybody else's work for that matter on Insight Timer. Today is self-regulating, and self-regulating energy is the Etznob in the Mayan calendar, which was the flint knife or the obsidian knife that with surgical precision goes in and cuts away that which no longer serves. And it is an invitation for us to look into the karmic mirror deeply and see what's true for us, what's not true. This is about lightning speed ahas and revelations that can happen when we are slicing through the illusions, right? The illusion of coronavirus, the illusion that we're separate from one another, or whatever it is that is an illusion that you've held in place in your own life. This aids us in transcending our limited material worldview, right? We have a very powerful material worldview held in place, and it's an illusion, right? And in that worldview, there's duality, there's polarization and division and coronavirus and all kinds of things that seem so real, but it's also being created by us, right? So here we get this opportunity to say, how are we playing into this? And it activates, a day like today activates our personal transformation ability. I like that. Activates our personal transformation. Now, another thing that we were talking about, ways to find peace or to get into a good space. I don't know how this happened yesterday, and I'm hoping you guys can hear this. Maybe if I share it on my screen, you guys can tap into this. Somehow I got to a YouTube channel yesterday that has ambient music playing. So it's la la la. Let me see if I can share my screen. Nope. Hold on. I'm going to go back for a second. Just one moment. I got to get better at this. Here it is. Okay. Now I'm going to share. And I'm hoping you guys can hear the music because it was so beautiful. And what am I doing? Share. There we go. Here we go. So what you're seeing is a YouTube channel called Ambient Study Music to Concentrate. But I hope you guys can hear this. Someone will have to tell me if they're hearing the sound. And if you're not, you can find the YouTube channel yourself. The channel is Ambient Study Music or Quiet Quest Study Music. And there's this beautiful, peaceful scene. And they have other things on their channel. Click subscribe there. And anyway, I'm not sure if you guys can hear that, but it was so beautiful. I just wanted to share another way for us to bring about peace in a time of craziness is music. right? Changing the atmosphere through music. So I'm going to stop this for now. Stop sharing my screen, go back and see if you guys were able to hear that. Yes, you hear it. Awesome. Thank you. So go to that YouTube channel and listen. It's 4 hours of music. And I'm going to try it today and see if it helps me focus, because I'm one that has this phone here. So one thing I do is I turn my phone upside down so I don't look at it for a while, but also just to be able to change the peace, to change to a more peaceful environment when your mind starts chattering. So hopefully this can help us focus that, and just another tool in the toolbox for us to maintain some peace. All right, so that is it for me this morning. Thank you all for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I will see you tomorrow's Friday. Can't even believe it. So be watching out for some readings. I think the weekend should be a fairly decent one. I haven't really looked ahead that far yet. Tomorrow's Friday the 13th. Yay, a sacred holy day for us feminine, the divine feminine. The weekend looks a little crazy for Saturday. But the rest of the weekend seems pretty good. So we'll have something to talk about, but then I'll set aside time for either some more chart work like we did this morning, or for some card readings. All right, that's it for me. Take care. Mwah. Much love. Bye for now.